VIP loops and variables, understanding the different data types and how you can use them with loops. Now there are a number of different methods of being able to store data. They can be in arrays, they can be in lists, and they can be in dictionaries. So we're going to look at string arrays, look at lists of strings, look at a dictionary, look at a list of lists, and look at a registered model, and then put that into a list of dictionaries. Okay, so let's get going. So first things first, go to the examples folder and you will find in there variables and loops. So let's go and look at variables and loops explained. Now you'll see that there are actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 examples already in there. You can also have a look in here in the actions palette where you will see conditions and loops, and these are really basically the for each and the while are the main constructs that you'll be using. But let's just kind of go in and just try and create a little loop without using one of those constructs. So let's just, first of all, I need to create a little variable. So let's just go in and create a variable called var I, and we're going to make it a type integer. I'm just going to have a little play at the top of the program. So let's lose that. And we're going to use a decision. So I'm going to drop a decision on here. Go into the properties of the decision, and we're going to say var I is less than 3. Okay, so we've got a decision, but of course we're going to have to increment that. The default, by the way, is 0, so it's going to start at 0 if you don't declare a default value for it. So let's go off and come in here and say var I equals var I plus 1. So that's that. So if the var I is less than 3, then let's go and increment it. And then what we need to do then is we need to go back to the loop. So let's just go back to the loop here, like so. And we've created our own little loop just to get going. Now we don't really know what's going on, so let's just drop a log message in here, and we'll put a log activity, and we're just going to put as the message var I, like so. Now var I is showing an error message, and if you just hover over it, what you'll see is it needs to be converted to string. So if you just press a dot, and it'll automatically tell you the functions that are available, and one is called toString. So let's just pick that. And now we have our little loop, and let's just go actions execute, and you can see we've actually displayed 1, 2, and 3. So that's a very manual way of being able to create a loop. So let's just get rid of these, and let's go down and have a look at the string collection. Now as you hover over each one, you'll notice that we've pinned an annotation in which describes exactly what's going on. So if you sort of forget what you're doing with loops and arrays and dictionaries, just go back in here, and most examples are included in here. So first of all, we're going to start with a string array. So that's described here, and if you double click inside it, now what we've done is we've actually put some quite detailed annotations in. If you go and have a look at the variables, also we've kept the variables apart from variables and var I, which is at the top, with the scope local to each one of these little mini flowcharts here. So the first thing we got is we've got a split string variable, like so. Let's just look at the properties of that. And what we're going to do is we've actually created a simple string, which is just A blank B blank C. You might be doing something like with a spreadsheet or something with commas or something along those lines. So what we're doing is we're going to split that string. The input is var example1 string, the separator is a space, and then the output is a thing called var example1 string array. Now how do you create a string array? So if we just come in here and do variable 1, if you click on the drop down variable type, most of the common types are already there, plus the ones you may have used recently. Boolean, integer, and string, most common ones, but you'll see down here one called array of t. If you just click on that one, then you can come in and you can then pick an array of strings. You could pick an array of an array if you wanted to, or array of lists, whatever you like. But at the moment we're just going to pick an array of strings, and what you'll see then is it looks like the example that we have here. So that's basically how we created that var example string, just using that list concept. So we've got our split string. And that's going to go through and it's going to chop it up into basically an array of strings. Now the secret is that you don't know how long that array is. Now if we go to the while example, now basically if we just dropped a while on here, it will come up with a little expression like so, and what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to say, just like we did at the beginning with the if condition, that it has to be less than something. And what you'll see in here, if we double click the view on this one, you're saying var example1 index is less than var example1 string array. And here again, if you just do a control space over that, you'll see you have all the different operators, and if we scroll down you'll see one called length in there. Then you get the length. So what that is we've got ABC, so there's going to be a length of 3, but it could be ABC and a D, for example. Now inside here we've got a very simple log activity, which is just saying while loop example 1, and then of course we have to do the increment like so. So we do have to actually do the increment. We're starting at 0 because arrays start at 0 in .NET frameworks. So the first one we're going to pull out is 0. The next one is going to be 1. Now the length is going to be 3, then it's going to be 2, so it's 0, 1 and 2, and then once it gets to 3, which is basically 1 over starting at 0, it will drop out of the while loop. So that's the first one. And then the next thing to do is just have a look at another example here. We'll just lose that one there. And you'll see a for each example. Now the for each is a different way of being able to do that. The for each is actually sometimes easier to use because it's just going to go through. Now we're going to go through a string, so we're looping through a string here. And if you double click to view, basically just go in and have a look. You'll see in here we've got for each item in var example1 string array. So for each one of these in the string array, now what it will do, item takes on the characteristic of the loop. So the output is a string, but it's coming from a string array. So obviously as you're looping through the string array, which is has one dimension, is going to convert into a 2 dimensions in effect, is going to be converted into 1 dimension with a string with the string as the output. So the log activity here, so if we look in here, see the log activity is just set to item. Now item has come from the type of string. So if we just go back up variables and loops, I'm just going to undo that one there, and let's just do actions execute and see what's happening. So it's saying while loop example 1 A, B, C, for each example A, B, C. So it's come from the same string array, but as you can see inside we've gone in with the while loop using this example, and then if we go back up to this one, you'll see in here item. Now you'll see this item quite a lot when you get into for eaches, and you might have for eaches inside for eaches. You've got to be a little bit careful you don't refer to item. You have to give it a specific name. Now item, you could actually call that something like, or whatever you like, but whatever goes in there will pick up the type of string. Okay, so that's the very first one. So let's just pop it back to item and go up, and that's a very quick introduction to being able to use string arrays with a while or a loop. So now let's move on to the list type. So let's have a look inside. Now looking at the variables, this is a slightly different way of approaching it. Now the first things first is we have to create a list of strings. So again, if we just come in here with var, I'll just go variable, and you'll see here variable type. And if we click on the drop down, in this case what you need to do is you need to go down for browse for types. You will actually see the one we're going to choose here, which is list string, but it's better if you go in and actually do browse for types. Now what you're going to have to do is type in list and then a left angle brackets, and what will happen then is you'll have a drop down list. Now here in this case we're just going to pick a list of strings. If you wanted to put a list of lists, you could pick another list or a list of arrays, etc. But hopefully you can see the idea. List and the left bracket is in effect going to create us this list of strings. Now you can see here that we've already had one set up, and here we've got an index set up as well. If you just hover over this, declare a variable with a sensible name, typed list with the brackets, so it gives you a little description in there, and then if you carry on down you'll see a new list of strings. Now the thing about using these objects, you're actually into a little bit of .NET programming here, and you need to get into this idea of objects. Okay, now in this case we have an example of a list of strings. If we just go in and actually look at this and look at the properties, you'll see we've got a new list of strings like so. Now the way that you define that as new, now the reason you're going to do new is you kind of initializing it and making the memory available in the program. So we're just going to come up with a new object, drop it on, and it's going to say, well, what is the type of object? Now it knows you've actually created a list of strings before, so it's a list of string type, and then you would go in and put in var example2 list of strings, and that's going to in effect freshen this up. If you try and work with it without doing a new object, you will get an error. So that's what this is all about here, describing how to do that. So you just got to make sure you do that. If you forget it, then it's very easy to just add it into the program. Now we'll just get rid of that one. Now the next thing that happens is when you unlike arrays where you can actually just assign them using using a open bracket 0 1 etc., what you're going to actually do is you're going to work with collections. So here we've got add to list and add to dictionary. So what we're doing here, as you'll see, add to collection, and there's an a already, but all we had to do to create that was to add to collection. Again, we need to tell it what type it is, and it's a string like so, and then we're going to put in here the variable, and the variable that we're interested in is basically a. So sorry, the item we're going to put in is a, like so. So we're going to add in an a, so that's what we're actually adding into it. Normally this would be a variable, and then you need to give it the collection name, and the collection name is example list of strings. And hopefully that should work. It's got rid of our little error. So basically the way that you add to lists is using the object concept, with the new object, and then you do add to list. You can also do clear list down if you want to clear it down, but you may as well just do a new object. So that's what that one is doing, and you can see here we've got add to collection B and we've got add to collection C. Now you'll see, just like we had with the strings, we've also got a while example in here, and if we go inside you will see var example to index, var example to list of string, but in this case we have the word count because we need to count how many there are in the list. It's not the length of an array, it's the count of the number of lists, like so. And you can see we've got a log activity, and once again we're incrementing it with a +1 like so. So hopefully you'll recognize it from the first example. And then if we go in with the for each, which probably makes more sense, let's just got to double click in there, you will see for each string item in var example to list of string. You don't have to remember anything under these examples. We're just going to loop through the entire list, and here we've got a log activity, and we're using the string item which has come out from there, and the var example to of lists. The for each statement is of type string again, and then if we come back up there and we just go right back to the top, and we'll just lose this, and if we just do actions execute, we've got while example 2, we've got A, B and C. Now in this case we actually pushed them into a list using the add to collections, and these are just two different ways of looping through and reading the data inside the lists. Okay, so that's that one, and now let's move on to using dictionaries. So let's go inside the little dictionary example. Now dictionaries are actually pretty cool. They're a very useful concept. They're almost like a little mini database. You have the concept of a key and a value at its very basic. You can't have duplicates of a particular key. So again, let's have a look at our variables, and you'll see here that we've got var example 3 dictionary of int string. Now if you look here, you'll see int 32 comma string. Now that means the key is of type integer and the value is of type string. So we're going to have, the integers 1 2 3. If you try and add 1 2 3 3, 3 is going to be rejected because it's already there. Now again, how do you create them? If we go back to our variable, come in here and click on browse for types, and once again, previously we used list with a little bracket. This time we're going to use dictionary with a little bracket, and here you can see now two little drop downs appear, and that's the t key and the t value. So you're going to choose integer and string in this case. Now you could have a a list of lists in here, or a list of strings, or a string array, whatever you want in there. And in one of the later examples, we will use a string and a modeled data type. But basically, for the purposes of this example, we've got a dictionary with an int and a string, like so. So let's go and have a look at that. So that's our core information. We've also created a var key and a var result, which is and a var value. Now the var result is a boolean. We'll explain that in a minute, and the value is the value is going to get pushed in. So first things first, if you remember from our list, we did need to do a new object, and it's going to ask you what type is it. Now it's recognized that there was a dictionary integer with a string, like so, and then once again you go into the properties and you've got to give it the collection name, and the collection name, sorry, the result, if the result of the new is var example3 dictionary of string, and that's basically going to create you a new memory object of this. So it's refreshing it and starting it ready to work with. So that's basically what that is there. Now the next thing, once again, if we go to our collections, you'll see over here we've got, previously we had to add to list, but in this case we've got add to dictionary. Now if we go to add to dictionary and have a look, we're adding in a key of 1. Now in this case again we're just hard coding the values in, and you can see as we work through we've got 1, 2, 3, and in this case we've gone 4 again, and now we're going to start reading stuff from the dictionary. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 of the values that are going to be going in, and all we've done is just do literally add to dictionary, dropped it on. It's going to know, it wants to know what the values of the keys and the values are. So here again, obviously it's an integer as the key and the string as the value, and then all we did and put in here was 5 and New York City, something like that, and that's basically going to add to the dictionary like so. Okay, so that's the way that we're adding from a dictionary, and now we're going to get values from a dictionary. Now the way you do get values from a dictionary is to go to the collections and drop on get value from dictionaries. Again, we've got it needs to know the type of dictionary, so it's got an integer and a string, and that basically is what this is doing here. So we're getting we'll just lose that one, and we come over here. So the key is var key, the result is var result, and the value is the value that's going to be returned. Now let's go and have a look at the variables. So in here we've got a var key. Now the default is 1, so it's actually going to pull in the value 1. It's going to pull back the value from the dictionary, and the result is, if you just hover over that, you'll see that's actually a boolean to say did it find anything. So that's the way that you actually say did I find a value in a dictionary. And you can see here we've got a var result true or false. If it's true, value is for key, and it's just displaying the keys like so. If it's not, it's going to say couldn't find that key. And then this one here, we're setting var key to 5, and we're doing the same get from dictionary with a similar type of lookup. Again, we're looking for the var result, so one should fail, one should pass, and one should fail. And then what we've done is we've done a for each statement here, and this is where we're actually looping through a dictionary. Now in this case, if we just go in and have a look in here, you will see for each key, let's go and have a look. Now you'll see here that we're not, when we're pulling back the dictionary, you need to tell it what you're actually pulling back here. So if you just do a dot and a control space and then come down, what you'll find is that one of the values is the key. So that's the actual key. So we're going to bring down the keys, and then key again is just, could be called item, whatever you want. And then in the log activity, we're actually just listing out everything in the dictionary. So this is the way that you're actually going to pull the values out. Now for key is, but also what you'll see here is that when we're referring to the value of the dictionary, so this is the dictionary of int string, all you have to do is give it the key value, which has come from here, so key to here, and then it's going to pull out the value. If you think about, one is the index and one is the actual values itself, so key is the index, and that is going to display that out. So let's just actually run this and have a quick look. So value is London for key 1, so it's gone in, it's found, it's looked for using the get dictionary, found London. Key 5 is not found in the dictionary because we only put 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it's listed for key 1, value is London, London, London. Now this is a duplicate, but we don't care about that. The only things that are duplicates that are unique in here are the key values. Okay, so just a couple of just to summarize on that, make sure that you're actually creating these new dictionaries like so with a new object. You're adding to the dictionary. You're looking using get from dictionary. And that's what these two lookups are, and then we're doing a for each through all of them, and then in there we just have this, the value itself is associated with the key. If we actually hard coded in the word 1 in there, it would actually work as well, because that would then just go off and look at the 1 like so, the 1 associated with the first London. Okay, so that's how dictionaries work. Now I'm just going to show you a couple more examples, but just a couple of slides just to talk you through them. Now you could do something like a list of string arrays if you wanted to. So you would do list, you would then pick an array of type string, and in effect what you're doing is that in the first list it's got 2 values, and the second it's got 3, the third it's got 2, like so. But actually it's a little bit easier to work with if you use list of lists. So that's a list of a list, and they're all type string. It means it's just you can refer to them using this methodology, and you're using the same types of concepts when it comes to adding to collections, as opposed to sort of having to mix different ways of adding in data. The final example I'll show you is actually a dictionary which is made up of a key, but the actual data itself is a model. Now the model can come from one of the registered models inside VIP. Now this could be a table definition, it could be a workbook name inside an Excel sheet, etc. And here we've got different keys, key 1, 2, keys 1, 2 and 3, and then we've got various different values in there, and that's a very useful way of being able to bring data in, because then you can look for specific keys and then go and look at the very specific values in some complex data structures. So let's go back to the examples. So let's go in and look at lists of lists. Now again, let's start with the variables, which is good place to start. Now here we've got a var list, which is a list of strings, and then we've got a var list and a couple of variables which we're going to do some looping with. Again, same concept. If you come in here and click on browse for types, and we're going to do list, and the next one we're going to do is list. That's right, we're just going to pick a list of strings. So here we've got a list of strings, so you will see list, list, string, and that's in effect what we're going to be working with as in the little PowerPoint. So first things first, again we've just done a new object, we've just dragged that new object on, we've said new var list. Now what we've also got to do is the first thing we're going to do is build up our individual lists here, and then we're going to add the list to our list. So first thing, we also have to do a new var list, so we have to initialize that, and again we're doing add to collection var list. We're putting A0 in, the collection is called var list, and now we're doing add to var list. So we're pulling the var list, the item, into var list. So hopefully that makes sense. Similar thing here. Now we're going to find a standalone list. Again we have to initialize it, and in this case we're putting B0 and B1. Once we've finished with that list, we're then going to put it into our list of lists, and again like so. So there's basically a single list with an A0 and another list with B0 and B1 put in it, like so. And you'll see here we've got for each var list. Now in here what I've done is item I in var list, and that's going to, now as we pull it back in, what I'm actually doing is pulling the var list from item L, repopulating that variable. I'm setting my var j to 0, and then I'm going to read through that var list, and again I'm putting var, so I've got var I to 0 here, var j plus 1, and then at the bottom of this we've got var I plus 1. So this is the outer loop and this is the inner loop, which we're going to repeat. And if we look at the log activity, which is where the brains of the operations is, basically we're saying I equals var I to string equals j var j to string, and item j which is the value, that's the string that's come from the value itself. So that's actually, these are giving you the parameters, and that's the string itself which is coming from the var list. So we've sort of deconstructed it. So if we just actually do an execute on that, So you've got I0, J0. So this is the lists. This is so there's two lists starting with 0 and 1, and then in here you've got just one value in the first list, which is in like so. This second list, which is number 1, has two values in it, which is at B0 and B1. So hopefully you get the idea, but basically it's a very powerful way of being able to create these constructs in memory. And now what we're going to do is we're going to look at a dictionary of models. So let's go and have a look at that one. So just go and add that in like so. So inside the examples, you'll actually see a little spreadsheet. Let's have a quick look at it. And you can see it's got various column headers, process name, parameter names, types, directions, values, and some data in it. And there's actually 6 rows of data like so. So what we're going to do, now what we've done is we've actually registered this and we've created a little DLL called executor. Now what we'll do here, again, if we go inside dictionary models, we've created some variables. Now the key one we're looking at is this one, which is a dictionary of flows. So here again we'll just go to variable, and we did browse for types, and we wanted dictionary. And we're going to pick a string, but then for the other one what we're going to do is we're going to browse for types, and we're going to look for VIP model. Now VIP model flows, I happen to know because I registered this, is the actual definition that we're interested in. So now we're creating a dictionary, which is quite a complex beast here. So this is the key of strings, unique values, and then we've got our model flows is the different types of them like so. So let's just lose that. And let's go and have a look, see what we're doing. So first things first, we're going to do read Excel, and that's pretty straightforward. All we did was we just got off and look at file systems, data import export, and we just said read Excel data and dropped it on. And it's going to say, well, what's the type that we're bringing in? And it's a type VIP model flows. So that's the actual definition of the workbook that we're dealing with. So that's all we did to bring it in. And you can see here that we've got, so this is actually going off and finding the appropriate file path that we care about. Does it have header? Have a look at the flows. And it's also telling us the actual model types. Now what you can do here is we care about the output, the type of data that's going to be read, and if we actually just remove those like so, and do a right click, add output property values, it will look for the appropriate data types. Now in this case it can't be, it has to be one or the other. So the advantage of the outlist is it actually puts it into a list rather than it just coming into a great big string. And if we look at the variables, you'll see var outlist, which is actually created twice now, so we'll just lose that, is a list of VIP models. So again, we're doing new dictionary, var dictionary flows, and then we're reading through each VIP model flow. So we're reading through the data that's come from the spreadsheet, which is var out list. The type argument is VIP model flow. So for each of the 6 rows, we need to put it into that particular type of model. And you'll see in here, we're actually then got item is of type VIP model. And what you'll see then, if you go to item dot, it's going to show you the columns that actually exist in there, which is great because you don't really have to worry about remembering any names because they're going to come up in the IntelliSense. So that's now put item forced to batch out there. So that's obviously one of the great examples of using models. So we're doing that, and then we're also doing is popping that into a dictionary. Now the key name, what I'm actually doing is taking the process name, which is one of the values, and I'm just putting it into a lowercase like so, and the values I'm putting the entire value out, which is the whole row of data, which is a nice trick just to take all the data. So I can look up specific processes and get all the data. And here we've got the var key is exchange rate, which is one of the values, again that's in lowercase. And here I've got looking at the description. So I'm looking at the description var key, find the specific value, which is var dictionary flows, so that's a dictionary. The key is the value exchange rate, and then I'm using that concept that we used before, pulling in the values that we care about. If we do control space, you'll see all the different types of things in there, and one of them is the flow description. Okay, so we've read in, if we just run this, So we've read in the examples and we've looked up key exchange. So this is actually just displaying the values as they're being put into the dictionary. We're looking up exchange rate, find a specific column, and the value is get the current exchange rate from webxe.com. So there's a fair few things going on there, but hopefully you're getting the concepts of dictionaries, which in this case are made up of strings and models. When we pull the data out of a spreadsheet, we're listing it, putting it into a list of models, and then we're taking the lists one by one, we're putting them into the dictionary, and then right at the bottom we're actually just looking up a specific value from the dictionary.